that I shoot with, and I
there we are. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the gathering of deplorables and extremists known as the Angry American Nation podcast. And you can just tell by the faces on the screen that I nailed it when I said that. Sadly, we don't have Emery tonight again. His drone accident, back injuries flaring up. Actually, no, he's in New York raising money for Israel tonight. But we do have the awesome Mr. T. Toombs of Mountain Readiness and the fabulous voiceover man himself, Sue LaRue, in the house tonight. How you doing, Sue?
Awesome. I'm doing good.
And then we've got one of my good friends. I've been excited to do this one for a while, Matt, because me and you ain't talked much. But I got Mr. Matt Tate with American Survival, or not American, sorry, it was me, Survival Co. Who we were just talking about your partner, Joel. But anyway, if you guys haven't.
Oh, I don't know what happened. We lost
him.
He'll
be back. He'll be back.
He'll kick back in.
So anyway, tell us what you've been doing, Matt.
Oh, been staying busy, teaching survival classes. Just finished about a month and a half ago with the plan. There he is. Here he goes.
I'm experimenting with the internet tonight, guys. I've got two different networks running, two different methods. I'm trying to smoosh things to get them better. Sorry about that. So, okay, check the show Snowflake Mountain with him and Joel on Netflix. It'd be hilarious to watch. So,
just check that out
Joel,
today.
Sorry, I'm thinking of Joel in my head. So Matt, what have you been up to, man? What's on the menu for Survival Co? What is on your menu? And I know we just said Joel's going to school, so we know what he's up to.
Right on. Well, I've got one more class for this year, and then I'm taking the rest of the year off from teaching the survival stuff, and then we'll kick that back off in January. Maybe the next week or two, I'll get next year's schedule published. And then doing work with Salvo, the other company that I work with. And so that's been keeping me pretty busy, consulting, that type of stuff. It's been kind of good for me because I don't get bored just doing one thing. I get to mix it up, doing a variety of stuff.
Well,
and he's gone.
It's going to be one of them nights. It appears.
I think so.
It's going to be one of them nights. I actually just watched. I don't watch a whole lot of television, so I saw just the first few episodes of Snowflake Mountain, and I got to say, them dudes, they had it made. Like compared to my childhood, I was like, man, they got Twinkies and ho-hos and stuff falling from the trees. Like I would have been, killing it out there. Sign me up for the next Snowflake Mountain. I gained 20 pounds.
Right. Yeah, it was pretty nice digs that they stayed in. I would probably rent that place because I thought it was awesome. But it's all relative, right? To where you're from, things you've done and haven't done. And so for them, you might as well have been standing them up, at the gates of hell. It was
you could
something nice.
It was hurting their feelings, there's no doubt.
It was.
That's too funny. And so for you guys watching, Matt is a premier survival instructor. Like, he knows his business. He's a lot of fun to be in the woods with too. So if you have survival related questions tonight, use hashtag survival to tag your question. And of course, at the end, we'll have a whole little Q&A few minutes for you. And I apologize for my internet doing what it's doing tonight, guys. I'm working on it still. Let me see. So Snowflake Mountain, are they going to do any more of that, Matt?
I don't know the answer. The last thing that I heard was negotiations between production and Netflix kind of ground to a halt. So I don't know. That could be the end of it. We could see seasons down the road, but as of right now, I don't have anything on the schedule from them that we're going to be filming anytime. So for now, I'm just, trucking on and doing what I do. And if the opportunity pops back up, then I'll jump on it. But for now, there's nothing scheduled.
Well, I know you guys had a good time doing it, but at the same time, doing TV kind of sucks. Everybody thinks it's fun, but it's not as much fun as they think it is when you're dealing with producers and PAs and all the other people that are trying to make you do what they want you to do. I can only imagine what that's like for you two.
All the stuff on fire looked fun. I mean, setting everybody's stuff on fire looked pretty cool. I was into that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. They didn't like it much.
Right.
Yeah, did you guys really burn their stuff, or was those empty suitcases?
Well, they went above and beyond to get exact replicas. I don't know how much time they spent doing that, because those people came with their own. Yeah, they had exact replicas of that. So they thought that we did. And I felt terrible because some of those people, they had brought like their most prized possessions, MacBooks or whatever. And so, in their mind, all of it just got destroyed. So, one side of me is laughing on the inside, and the others, I'm like, I feel really bad for them right now because some of them all they had,
Yeah, but some of the people that are on there in the bed suffer.
Yeah.
Some of them, I'm like, I want to watch him suffer because. Yeah. It looked like a good time to me.
It was.
So, we'll jump into some stuff, and Sue and T, you guys don't hesitate, but let's get your take real quick, Matt, on the current state of let's just say world, and then what you think folks should be prioritizing right now. Because everybody's nervous, everybody's wondering what they should be doing. So let's talk about it for a few minutes.
Well, everybody can look around. It doesn't matter if you're looking on a news channel or Instagram or, Facebook or YouTube. It doesn't matter. You're going to see really just chaos happening everywhere in the world right now. And whether that's what's happening in Israel or you go even further east of that, lots of things are happening that are not making it to the news, but that are pretty big things. And so, I think this is one of those times where it's really easy for folks to get overwhelmed because there's so much big deal stuff happening out there right now. But, I always say, focus on what's close to you, and what's close to us really is our border. And that's the most concerning thing to me, is just uncontrolled masses coming across our border and us not knowing the intentions of those people, with so many of them being military aged, just males coming across. I don't think they're here for food stamps or, bowling alleys. I don't know why they're here.
Better quality of life. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I
agree. I think all of America agrees too. Yeah, I think everybody in the country, most everybody in the country agrees with that. You have these people that believe in open borders, everywhere. Like there should be no border, no place. There's those folks. But for anybody who has any pride in where they live, they think the same thing. That's our biggest problem. And you're starting to see it in Europe. Europe's starting to wake up, a lot of countries are going to be in a world of hurt moving forward, but they're even starting to wake up. And it's like French to be the way for some reason. I don't understand that. So why are they always so easy to take to the streets, man? Sue,
you're talking to me. You're cutting out real bad.
Oh yeah. Oh, okay. I was out there.
But
am I? Sorry, guys. I'm experimenting with internet. I was just saying, why do you think the French are always the ones that take to the street first?
Well, I was actually paying attention for just one day I think it was Saturday, and I was listening to the pro-Palestinian protest in London, and then they had another big one in Paris. And in London, like Matt was saying, in London, there's people saying, hey, enough of this. So there was also a pro-Israel group that got in a confrontation with the pro-Palestinian group. What surprised me was there was 90 arrests, and all of them came out of the pro-Israeli group. So that's the part that scares me the most in our home territory. And we touched a little bit on this in the last episode when I said there's 80 FBI agents running around New Jersey looking for one guy who went into the woods. My question is, and for everybody out there that carries a badge or is part of law enforcement and everything, remember you're signed and you swear an oath to the Constitution like we do in the military, right? And I know some of the prosecutors and some of the DAs and everything in certain counties and certain districts are kind of left leaning, but when you carry a badge, you still have the prerogative whether you want to arrest this guy or arrest that guy, So I'm worried about what is our law enforcement going to do if people like you and I or T stand up and say, hey, enough's enough. Are we the first ones to go to jail? Are we the first ones to be disarmed? And are we going to sit in a jail cell or a prison block or the county lockup for 6-8 months before we ever get our charges read to us, like some people did in a protest, or basically a little bit of got a little out of hand just a few years ago, right? Right after the election. I just hope that the law enforcement starts taking the side of common sense here in this country. That's my opinion. That's the part that makes me nervous.
Yeah. And me too, Sue, because we've talked before that we have like a two-tier justice system in this country now. If you're left, you get treated one way, but if you're right, you get treated another way. And when we constantly hear the director of the FBI and people like that come out saying that, right-wing extremism is the greatest threat to this nation. When we look around and we don't see right-wing violence, but you see left-wing violence everywhere you look. At what point do you say to yourself that kind of like Reagan, I didn't leave America. America's left me almost at this point, I don't have the same rights as everybody else. And that's what scares me, because like you said, it's up to law enforcement. Go ahead.
What scares me is now they're saying homesteaders are the new basically terrorists. Think about that. What does that say about where our country is going? What it says is that if you take care of yourself, you're self-sufficient, and you will stand up to tyranny, you are a terrorist. That's what it says.
Yeah, because it's homesteaders, it's homeschoolers, it's anybody who thinks independently, tries to take care of themselves, not looking for the handouts, not looking for the state to support them in any way. Those are the people they're afraid of. Because, there's that whole, we hear it as a joke, and we all say it, but that you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, and that's, I think, their real goal is that direction. That 2030 stuff, which they keep changing the dates on all the time. But, by, 2026, every vehicle has to have a kill switch in the country, which a lot of them do. If you have OnStar, your vehicle already has that capability. They can do that. But the fact that now every vehicle manufacturer has to have it. And then you look at, like in New York, what they're doing there with monitoring social media and building profiles on people based off social media traffic. It's really getting Orwellian, So the question is, what are some things that we could tell people that they could do about that? Number one, I would be getting ready, stocking your basic stuff, but also trying to fashion your life into one that can withstand the blows that are to come, as far as access to food, water, and things like that.
Really good stuff. I say the first thing is take a break. Because, sure, in mass, some people and voices can be heard, but I kind of think focus on things that I can affect. And I kind of almost envision myself like every now and then I just stick my head up out of the hole and see, all right, this is happening now. This is happening. okay, God, let me get back to just focusing on what I need to do, exactly what you're talking about, Chris, just to kind of start being more prepared, more self-sufficient, and not let that stuff overwhelm me, which is kind of a fine line. We need to be informed, right? But with so much information overload, it can be a challenge. So I say it's important to disconnect and focus on the things you need to be doing for sure, to be getting ready. But it's just too overwhelming. We have so much information, and everything that's pushed is really not good stuff. That's just hitting us from every angle. Like, are we even designed? I saw a reel the other guy this was talking about where humans designed to take all of that input that we see globally 24 hours a day. You turn on something and there's stuff that's not good. So take a bit of a disconnect from that, focus on the things that you can control within a 2-mile radius, and poke your head out the hole every now and then to see, all right, where are these fallen to this point? And mostly just because that's an indicator of maybe how much time I got left, to keep preparing, to keep my family safe.
Yeah, I agree. We're constantly bombarded with stimuli, and like you said, everything you see and hear, it's propaganda from one side or the other. And
Sure.
I've been saying kind of the same thing for years, telling people we're preparing for tomorrow, but remember to live for today. Do the things that you enjoy. Take your family on vacations, do all those things, because someday you may need those memories to think back to that it was better. It will be better again, and so I agree with you entirely on that. Take the time. Paralysis to analysis is another problem. You get too inundated with this information, you don't know what to do either, which could be just as big of a problem.
Consider the information that we're getting as well with AI. I mean, we talked about this here a couple episodes about. I mean, so much can be done with this AI now. Who even knows what you're watching, if it's true or not?
Well, as an example of that, today I read an article. I was about some photos that Hamas put out. Sue, is that what you're about to mention? Hamas put out propaganda photos claiming they were from Gaza, but they're AI generated photos, because a guy in one of the photos only had 4 fingers on one hand, and then a little boy in one of the other photos had 6 fingers on one hand. So that's a pretty clear indication those are AI generated photos. But looking at them, you can't tell until you catch something like that. Most kids don't have 6 fingers, and they did it on the hand he had raised too, which I thought was really weird. But the AI thing is scary, because you're right, we don't know what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it's almost like you have to kind of go ahead.
Go ahead, Stu.
No, I'm just agreeing with what Matt said. That's what I've been doing for the past couple of weeks. And of course, T and I got together, and we dabble in helping out some of the guys that were at Fallout. But other than that, I've just been focused on my backyard type thing, and I'm okay. What do I need to do to get ready for the winter, and what do I need to do to get ready for the spring? And everything I try to apply about 2 or 3 hours a day to it. And it's kind of my therapy, if you will. Okay, what do I need to do if the electricity just stopped, or like we saw here in North Carolina a couple of years ago, we're not getting any gas for 2 or 3 weeks, so if I run out of gas, I run out of electricity, do I have enough to bide some time and poke my head out of the foxhole, like Matt was saying, and say, okay, what's going on now? And then go back down, and then I can start preparing, for what's going to hit us. Because I agree with all of you. I think what's happening in the big cities has nothing to do with homesteaders and people in the rural areas. I mean, we can focus on other things and not worry about this big city.
Right.
I agree, because the cities are going to be their own little problem unto themselves, just because of carrying capacity alone. And I'm so glad I don't live in a big city. That we're out in the sticks, which is where I like to be. But Matt, what do you think? Other than taking that time to breathe and taking a moment to, you know, to understand that you're being bombarded with this stuff and to try to don't let it consume you, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What's some other stuff that you recommend? You know, because a lot of preppers, they're great about storage stuff, and we all are. We all store tons of stuff, but we've got to look beyond that and have systems in place that'll fulfill these needs when the stores run out. So kind of like, what are you doing right now? I know did you guys finish your wife's new office? Is that thing up and running?
Yeah. It's good to go, and it's working out
awesome.
really well.
Okay.
Yep.
Good deal.
Yep. You know, I think
good. I was just wondering about
that. Things that I would throw out there. It's really easy for us to take for granted. That's just the way it is. You're really into something. It's easy for us to forget that not everybody's got the experiences that we have walked the life paths that we have. And so I say, start back at the fundamentals, medical stuff, right? It's all this stuff has been talked. I'm not going to say anything new here tonight. Nobody else has said, but it's really, really important stuff because we're talking about, you know, these big cities and getting out away from that. And then if significant problems, whether it's 2 weeks without gas or whether it's 2 months without electricity because of some even natural disaster happens, it just doesn't take very long for emergency services to get overwhelmed, right? And so I'm always surprised how many people have never been to CPR and first aid course. You should look at the statistics on how many lives are saved every year just by CPR. It's ridiculous. It's a super important skill to have, and stop the bleed. You don't have to go become a nurse, a doctor, or an EMT. You can go take a free stop the bleed course somewhere. Something to keep your loved ones or people that you encounter alive long enough to get them to a higher level of care and have the tools necessary to do that. So all this stuff that I'll mention, I'm training on this stuff. I've had training on it, but a lot of these skills are perishable. And so I still train on this stuff. The simple stuff, the more you train it, the less you're going to have to think about doing it whenever it really counts, right? And that's the biggest thing. The other things that I'm going to mention, the medical, you just don't want to be figuring that out for the first time when it counts. You know, that's a big deal.
Yeah, when someone's got an arterial bleed. Yeah.
And you got 2 to 3 minutes. Yeah. And YouTube and all these other things are great, but just because you've seen it doesn't mean you own it. And so that'd be the first thing I'd say, getting some basic medical training. Everybody should be doing that. About all the small villages, I think they call them kibbutz, that got hit, and no emergency services were coming to help those people. So if you don't know any medical skills, a tornado comes through and wipes out, 5 miles, and F5 comes through. You think emergency services are coming to rescue you? They got a lot of people to deal with. So that's number one on my list. I don't know what we can get away with on here talking about means of self-defense. So I want to be choosy with my words, maybe.
Well, as long as we're not showing them, we're fine, I believe. So we're not showing them. We can talk about self-defense and the tools of self-defense, and if YouTube don't like that,
freedom speeds and stuff like that.
Yeah, everybody should be skilled up. Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, I have an example. I have an example of that. I picked up my cousin's daughter, adopted daughter, out of Nicaragua. My cousins, through their church group, adopted a little girl out of Nicaragua about 5-6 years ago, and they were busy, so I picked her up today, and I took her after school. We went and had a late lunch together, and I was stepping out of my truck, and she said she looked at my waistband and she says, "Why do you have a gun?" And I said, "Well, I always carry a gun." She goes, "Why do you always carry a gun, Uncle Sue?" Is what she said. And I was like, well, in case something happens, then I want to be able to protect you. Right. And she goes, well, why do you need a gun? And I said, well, a gun's like a parachute. You know, if you got to jump out of an airplane, you probably want a parachute to slow down what's coming next. So if you have a gun and something bad happens, I'm going to wish I had and I don't have a gun. If something bad happens and I don't have a gun, then I'm probably going to wish I had one, so I always carry one. So that's the way I explained it to a 13-year-old girl, from Nicaragua. And I think she got it pretty easily. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of them around me, they all ask me, do you only have one? Why do you only have one with you? Usually you have 3 or 4. That's usually the question I get. Why do you only have one today?
Yeah, I think that's go ahead.
I was going to say another thing is that we take for granted because all 4 of us, we live outside the wire. We're out of the city life, and water. Water is a huge thing, and I don't think much about it because I specifically bought this property because it has multiple springs on the property. So I have fresh water coming right out of the hillside behind my house, and an artesian well and a pond and all this. But that's something that people really need to be focusing on right now is what's your sustainability with your water supply?
Yeah, so if you don't have water where you live, you will leave there and go to water is what will happen to you. So that's not negotiable. You can thing a while, but the water can't. That's a definite.
Yeah.
So and people on city water, I'm concerned about.
How do you get to it? What's your plan? What's your plan to get to that water?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would say another avenue that I really have spent, I'd say I've just dove really deep the past 2 years. I've been studying plants for about 10 years now, but I've really been getting more interested in just diving deeper and deeper. And the cool thing about plants everywhere, there are plants in cities, in the country. I mean, you can find plants somewhere. And if you start to have an understanding of how those have medicinal value and you can identify those things, you understand what to stay away from. It doesn't matter. You could be a doctor, and if there are no medications prescribed, well, I guess you can tell someone what's wrong with them. But if you don't have any understanding of what nature's got to offer in terms of healing properties, then it's probably not going to do you a lot of good. So that's the training, starting to acquire knowledge on that. I would say just little bites at a time. Learn a plant every week or every 2 weeks. Something in your neighborhood when you go for a walk. I don't care if that's in Central Park or in Texas, wherever. Find a place to go for a walk and just pick a plant. And there are some really good apps that will let you identify them, and then go home and research them. See if it has any kind of value. Is it medicinal? Is it toxic or poisonous? Or does it have medicinal value? But
or is it food?
Yeah. Or it's food. Yeah. Is it edible?
Yeah. Yeah. So here's a point I want to make. This just popped into my head when we start talking about water, and it's something that Alan's brought up to me. Alan Kay's brought up to me many times in his hops and travels around the world. Containers. Like, I want everybody to think for just a minute. How many 5-gallon buckets do you have at home right now? Or say 5-gallon jerry cans kind of thing. Because containers is something we take for granted in the Western world because we don't have to do like a lot of the world does and walk for miles carrying water back to our homes. But let's just say that tomorrow that suddenly was your reality, that you're having to move water manually to and from your home. Who has the containers to do so? Who has that ability? Again, it's something we don't even think about. But I think like a 5-gallon bucket in most of the world is a treasure. I mean, Matt, I know you've been around, some places. I know Sue has for sure. But something like a 5-gallon bucket can be a treasure to these people because it's very difficult to manufacture from nature, as you know, Matt, and that kind of industrial capacity doesn't exist all over the world. So having something like that is valuable. And when you start thinking of having to move liquids in particular, which are the most difficult commodity to move, be they fuel or water or anything, you're going to need containers to do that. So it's just something to stick in the back of your mind. The next time you're at Lowe's or Home Depot, grab that orange or blue bucket. No, they're not food grade, but it doesn't matter for your purposes. Having some containers and the ability to, because think in a grid down situation, everything's gonna be manual. Everything you move, you're gonna carry it. Once the fuel runs out for your side by side or whatever, just for those that are gonna say that, unless you've got large animal livestock that can do the lifting for you. But containers is another thing. And where do you stand on comms, Matt? Because I'm a ham operator, and I believe comms are hugely important, more for listening than talking. But what's your opinion on that?
So I've just dove off into the world of comms, and I have lots to learn, but I'm in the process of learning. And so there are lots of good cheap options out there. Some of those things, like those, I'll probably mispronounce it. The Baofengs, the radio.
Yeah, Baofeng, that's it.
Yep, really cheap radios, but ham capabilities. Probably even more than that. Some that I've seen recently were 8 watts of transmitting power. But for right now, because technically, you said it yourself, you're licensed. FCC says you have to have a license to transmit, and so I don't think the FCC has a huge history of just going after, because there are tons like airsoft kids and paintball, who will use those as communication devices.
Oh yeah,
I don't think these things out there just running around trying to hem people up for $250,000 or whatever. But who are the people you were talking about earlier that said, "Hey, these people are problematic"? And so if those people are using that ham, it doesn't mean they're going to get hemmed up, but man, if they wanted to, technically, right? So something that I've been looking into, my understanding, 2 that don't require a license. And I think because those are so cheap, they're worth the hams, the Baofengs, they're worth getting and putting on the shelf, right? Putting into EMP.
Oh, sure.
You got FRS and MERS, right? That don't require a license. So MERS is something that I've been looking more into. As long as the grid up, because it doesn't require a license. And my limited understanding of MERS, is that it's somewhere between FRS, which is your typical Walmart Midlands, and a ham, something like that. So a little bit better. And I don't think a lot of people are running MERS radios.
More than you would think. Trust me. Those frequencies are used by a lot of folks. What we need to do, dude, me and you need to get together offline and look at schedules and go over to Brushbeater and take his RTO course. I'd love, first, you two need to meet. I've been trying to arrange that for years, and you need that class. And I'll take it again as a refresher, but I'd like to take it with you, because he'll really open your eyes. Yeah, to the comms questions. He'll open your eyes.
January, isn't it?
There probably is one in January. Yeah.
Well, why we're
Go ahead,
Go
sir.
ahead. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you.
No, I was going to change the subject a little bit, but and I agree. We all need to kind of get together. Being a former common guy for SF, for Special Forces, I'd like to just teach people Morse code and then how to take a phrase out of any book that we want to and trigraph it. So even when people do hear it, they don't know what you're saying on there, that type of thing. Just, it's a simple method to used to be used, behind the Iron Curtain or during the Nazi occupation of France. But it is really simple. And I don't know why people don't know more about it. But to change the subject, I wanted to ask Matt, what I used to do, I read this book by this American years ago, like 10, 12 years ago. And when I was in Colorado, I used to have this bug out bag, this little day pack just full of anything, I was like, well, if I wreck my truck or roll my truck in the mountains, or, if Denver just suddenly catches fire and we can't get out of Denver, I got this bag I need to go with. I've gotten a real bad habit of not carrying that anymore. And I've noticed that in the last month or two that I was like, I don't have my bug out bag anymore. Matt, what are you in the habit of carrying a bug out bag if you leave home 25, 30 miles away from home?
So in my mind, I think a bug out bag is I'm never coming back, and it would take a lot to happen for me to come back. So what I've done that makes me carry it more often is more of a smaller bag. So I'm a former engineer, so I've had to do without and just create stuff out of for missions. And so I have this tendency, if I've got a big bag, I'm filling it up, and I just know that about myself.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I just start carrying a smaller bag that's stuff, something for shelter, something with water, some self-defense means, a little tiny bit of food because I wouldn't need much, water filtration, way to carry water, and just a few extra good in there. But what I find is because it's a smaller bag and it's not like my bug out bag used to be, I carry it a lot more. And as silly as it sounds, one of the things I just don't know if a lot of folks carry them or not, but one of the prize things that I carry in that get home bag is a good set of those Arc'teryx kneecaps, their knee pads, because I think I'm probably going to want to take a knee if it's dark, dirt road, a piece of gravel slicing my knee. And so I always have a couple of those, and I don't see that in a lot of people's bags. But if you've done lots of rucking or lots of hiking, then, it's a good idea to take a knee whenever you can. And I don't want to have to be, as thoughtful about where I'm kneeling down to take a look at something or take a rest or whatever. So, and then one other bag, I just have a fight bag, and that bag has some water, ammunition, night vision, because sure as a world, it'd be nice to have that if you were out after dark. Real simple things like a 2-mile radius. So not very much in that bag. But anytime I leave the house, that stuff's always with me. But because they're much smaller, less bulky to bring in, I don't mind bringing them in every time. It makes me keep them with me more.
See,
my ruck's a big one right now, but I leave it in my truck. It just stays in my truck. But that ruck's designed for like you said, Matt, I'm never coming home, because I could easily be 1,000 miles from where I live on any given day. And that bag is like sustained. I could rebuild the village out of this ruck if I have to, kind of a thing, And what were you saying, T?
Same here. Yeah, I was saying I'm the same way. I like the option to have it, and if I have to ditch it for some reason, I can. I've got the big bag with all the goodies. Now, the knee pad thing, that's a great idea. Another thing I throw in my bag, too, I started carrying is sea salt. All those trace minerals, all that to replenish your body. I carry a thing of sea salt with me in my bag, along with some other stuff. And then, of course, Sue and I last week had got together with some acquaintances, and he made note of my man purse that I pack around. The MERS, as he referred to it. I personally like it. I can carry all that stuff in there. I've got my blowout kit and pistol and ammo and all those trinkets that go in there, plus my wallet and all that stuff. And I've gotten in the habit of packing that thing around too, because it's convenient. Just throw it over my shoulder, pack it around. Nobody really looks at it. It's not, other than, hey, that guy looks a little strange with his man purse. But other than that, I think it's pretty common in this day.
Yeah. I do have.
You need to make sure your man purse matches your
purple
skirt next time, and they won't look at you as much.
Yeah, I was going to say there was a guy with a purple ponytail that was winking at you. You didn't notice.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, if I'm going to travel,
so quick question for
I'll have something bigger.
Yeah. And that's why I keep a big one, because I'm not just going to keep redoing them. But quick show of hands, who carries a tourniquet like on their person? Any of you guys? Yeah. All right. Sue, you don't? Yeah, you better. All right. So I figured. Yeah, because that's another one of those things. Back to the analogy of the gun. When you need one, you don't have time to go find one. You need one right now. So if you carry a gun, you better carry a tourniquet.
Same.
So
that's in my man purse. I've got the Bear Slick kit that I carry, and then the tourniquet. And I actually started carrying a tourniquet in my pocket years ago, especially working around. I've been dropping a bunch of trees here lately. And I watched my father years ago skip a chainsaw down his shin. And we were out in the middle of the woods. And of course, if he would have nicked something in the wrong spot, that'd have been game stopper right there. So, just little things like that you should think about. How many of us out in the woods use a chainsaw? I use a chainsaw at least probably once a week. Towards the winter time when we're cutting firewood, I use it a lot. And that tourniquet, life or death right there.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Well,
so Matt, what do you carry for night vision? Because a lot of people ask about it.
Pocket, right here in my right here in my pocket. Just one real quick. Since I retired from the military, I don't wear a watch anymore, and I used to just put a compass on there. But the wrist compasses tend to break and get, most of them are made out of plastic and then tore up. I was at a tracking class. Guy gave me this. This is actually one of the neatest things I think I've ever owned. And it's real small. It's smaller. It's about half the size of a can of Copenhagen. I put it in my front pocket. And all it is a compass, right? That they used to use. They used to use a model of this clear back in the Revolutionary War. And it's got a little sundial on it, and you point this towards the north, and whatever the shadow goes at, that's what time it is, So that was given to me at a tracking class, and I was like, that is the neatest thing I've ever seen. So I've just gotten in the habit of just making sure that goes in my front pocket all the time. So if I gotta run out of the car real quick, I can at least stay in one direction,
Yeah, that's pretty slick.
And I use a Flamingo on my watch. That's a good one.
Yeah.
What are you saying, Matt?
You asked about vision. Is that what you asked about? Not
night vision. Yeah, we were asking about night vision.
Yeah, what you pack?
Yeah. I asked, what do you carry for night vision? Because so many people ask. So, what do you run?
I'm partial to a PVS 14. I know it's a lot of people are now in binos. I think binos are great if you're driving or doing something dynamic like that. But, just for me personally, I've used both. And I prefer PVS 14. I like the white phosphor. And when I had mine built, I went with the L3 filmless tubes because they'll be a little bit more durable.
Nice.
And I'm really, really happy with them. But I just like the 14. I can easily flip it from one side to the other. Makes life easy. And then I don't lose my night vision in the other eye. And then it allows me the capability to go to my thermal and just, flip the one out of the way. Now you could do the same with binos, but that's just my preference. I prefer 14. Which for those don't know.
Yeah, I've got one and the monocular. Yeah. I've got one and I've got a bino too, but I probably use the 14 more than I do the binos. For just like you said, you wear it over non-dominant eye, probably, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I mean,
because that's a force multiplier, guys. That's a game changer. Yeah. Oh yeah. But but if you've got it, the other guy doesn't. That's a game changer.
Look, I know
the winning factor.
Whoever owns the night owns the world.
Yeah.
I found that out in the Middle East. We own the night. Guys way cooler than me were doing way cooler things than I was doing. They owned the night and they owned the battlefield. So yeah, it's a huge force multiplier.
That was years ago.
Well,
man.
Guys, we're gonna do a quick.
At my age.
Finish up.
At my age, I'm in bed by 8 o'clock, so I just go into a fetal position and try to hide for the entire hours of darkness now.
Tuck on bed.
Okay. If I can't see the monster can't see me. Using that old line of thought. But we're gonna take a quick break, guys. We got to do some shameless plugging here real fast. But don't forget hashtag survival if you got some questions you want Matt to answer, or any of us here to answer. And we do have the super chat stuff going on. That's one way to make sure your question will get answered. I hate to sound like I'm panhandling, but this is YouTube, so we're panhandling. So we'll be back in just a few minutes, guys. And don't forget about On the Rocks
podcast,
after that.
If we talk about gun control, it's in relation to your marksmanship. Haven't had enough yet? Stick around for after the show. Bolder, grittier, angrier. On the Rocks with Angry American and the Gang is coming up next.
Nice. What thermal do you use, Matt? Are you running when you're not weapon mounted? Let's put it that way.
The only thermal I have, well, you can use it mounted or unmounted, and it is a Polar. I think it's an XD50A. So I probably got it maybe 4 years ago. I think there's some much more streamlined stuff on the market now, but it works really well, and it complements night vision. Right, they both have their distinct advantages, and I like that one because you can. If I had to do it over again, I would get a clip on, something that you could use handheld, but something that clips on in front of your day optic.
I'm acquiring one of those in the very immediate future. Actually, it's a new one that I can't remember the name of it because they just were imported for the first time here. But they're a high-end one, and it comes with all of the rings to attach to the different optics. So it'll clip right on the front of your optic directly to it, and now you've got a weapon-mounted thermal. So I'm going to be getting one of those here very soon. It's actually in Gainesville waiting on me.
There's one I think it's called iRay. I think is a really nice one. I think I'm saying that right.
It might be. I'm not sure. But John Faulkner over at Firearms Depot, he has them in stock. He had 3 of them was all he was able to get. One of them's earmarked for me. I'm picking that because I'm going to do some video on it and stuff too, because this is a pretty nice system. And a weapon-mounted thermal, that's, even if you're just hunting, that's pretty damn good right there.
Yeah.
You have to let us
check that out when we all get together again.
Oh yeah, we will. I just got to get over to Gainesville and pick it up, and then I'll let everybody see it post show. I'm gonna go through some of these questions over here as we go through this. Here we go. That's a great one. Water filtration, Matt. Are you a pump guy or a gravity guy?
No way, gravity for sure. Yeah, I've tried like some very expensive pump filters, and they clogged so fast. You had so much going on with the different tubes where they could cross-contaminate each other, and everybody else was just drinking to their heart's content while I was continuously cleaning out my pump filter. So just know what things there are to worry about in your area, and if it ain't much, it really can't beat a Sawyer Mini. If there is more, then a Grail or something like that that's got a lot more. Just know the capabilities of your filter, because they're not all created equal, and know what are the most likely things you need to worry about where you're at. But no, you can keep those pump filters.
Yeah, that's well, and two, the ability to filter water quickly, filter water on the move, because you may not be able to filter your water at the source. You might have to run down, scoop a bunch up, and run off with it. So, and that's one of the things that I dislike about the Sawyers. That little bag they give you, it's got that tiny little fill hole in it, and you're not going to scoop up water and run with that.
Now, the only reason
you're not going to fill that in a stagnant water.
No, I keep those so that whenever I teach classes, I can tell people, throw this away. I was using one down in America. Seal busted on me, and it was like, well, okay, I guess I'm just drinking raw water now. But it's hard to beat just a smart water bottle. They got a little bit thicker metal plastic. You can carry even out of the country. Just take the bottle empty. That's what I do if I'm somewhere, and I'll just hook my Sawyer to that and boom.
Yeah. I'm running just a live straw. Just pack a little live straw around with me.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that.
So here's the thing I'll tell you to consider about relying on only a straw filter. That means that you got to get down on your knees and put your face in the water source, and you're not pulling security when you're doing that. That's my problem with straw filters in general. So,
and that's
so what's your go-to water filter? Yeah, so you can. I mean, if you get it out of the puddle, you can filter it. I just wonder what filter do you like, Sue?
I generally, like you were talking about containers before, I usually just carry a metal, like, a metal algae bottle with big wide opening, and I scoop water up, and then I get it to a running boil. I have several filters that people have given me over the years, and I've never really gone out and played with them, probably because I was raised out in the Rocky Mountains, and I don't think I get giardia. I never had a problem drinking water, but if I'm questioning water, I will boil it. I will always boil it before I drink it. So. But
that's the surest way, for sure.
I have drank water. Yeah, I've drank nasty water in several parts of the world, and I've yet to even get to Montezuma's Revenge. I just don't have that problem for some reason.
That means your gut's a hostile environment for them. They can't survive there.
I earned it.
And our next question.
Well, yeah, and I just
this one's,
I just spent the last 6 months
me.
with some disease I don't know about, so I probably got it from the water somewhere.
You probably did get it from the water. Will Gomez, the way you do that is with a sat phone. That's how you do it on TV,
right?
Especially when you can't go nowhere. when
you're
you're stuck there and there's nowhere to go.
He's been spreading the love around. He actually made a comment for Sue. I don't know if Sue's watching these. He said they didn't have NVGs around, Sue, during the Civil War.
The Civil War.
Yeah.
So here's one. Jason says, so what if unequivocally you can't move from an urban environment? I will prevail in any situation, even living in an urban environment. It's just going to be a hell of a lot harder. Everything you do is going to be so much harder. I mean, that's what I'll say. Because you're going to have so many people, well, not even just people, but life forms in general, from humans to rats, fighting over the same resources. And when you put people in that kind of density, we get disease issues, because Westerners especially have no idea how to deal with their own waste. They're used to just flushing a toilet. And so it's a foreign concept to them to deal with it directly.
We talked about this before during Reagan administration years ago with the waste management services when they went on strike for 3 days in New York. Think about just that. They shut down New York City with garbage. In 3 days, it was shut down. You couldn't even move. So you throw that into the equation of being in the urban, the city, garbage, shut down the biggest city, the biggest, the most brightest, best city there is in the United States, at least by, city standards. So, trash. That's all it took.
Well, I've been in several hurricanes here in North Carolina, but when you live in an urban environment, I picked up a lot of techniques off of the hurricanes that were coming into North Carolina all the time. And when I hear hurricanes coming in, the first thing I'll do is go to every bathroom, every sink, and I'll just fill them full of water, for potable water right there. Just to have some water, and ration it. I guess you'd have to, but just fill up your bathtubs, fill up your sinks, like we were saying, is if you have big pots and things like that, just fill things up with water. And there's your start right there, staying in an urban environment, and just have potable water to drink. And hopefully you can ride it out, whatever it is, until you can get out. But my first thing, if I was in an urban environment, is I was wait for the first wave or the second wave, and then I would get up and get out of the urban environment, get out of that trash as fast as possible.
And if you absolutely can't, I can think of nobody better suited the homeless to show you how to survive in an urban environment. They do it all the time with very little. Right? And so those folks, maybe not by choice, but they are the experts to go to, because every environment, the environments, and every time I go somewhere to learn at an instructor level, I'm going to learn with someone who lives in that environment and specializes, right? So that I can get down to the minutia of what is very specific about, because a lot of things have crossover. So if you are stuck in an urban environment, either study, talk to, humanize people, and go visit with them and ask them questions, because they know better than anyone how to survive in those environments, for sure.
Yeah, Alan, he was talking with a homeless guy up in Asheville one time, and he asked the guy, the guy took Alan to his camp and everything, and he said the camp was tidy and clean and everything, and he's talking to the guy, and he's like, what's one thing that you could have, just like one thing for, to improve your life out here, what would it be? And the guy thought about it for a minute, and he said an e-tool. I mean, he said folding shovel, but he said an e-tool. And Alan was like, he goes, really, a folding shovel? He's like, yeah. He goes, it let me bury my waste. It would let me keep my camp cleaner. It would let me do this and do that. So it's just from what you're saying, at least people have an interesting perspective, because they already do live that life. That was an interesting reply to us, that because that's like, for everybody sitting here, having an e-tool with us is probably a given. My ruck's got a Glock e-tool in it. It's something I take. I live in Florida where you can dig, so I keep a shovel. But the interesting perspective goes right to what you just said, Let me see. And Andrew Dougherty says, I don't think we will ever be truly prepared, but we can make life better with what we're doing. Yeah, what you're doing right now. Absolutely. Everybody's going to crash. The only question is, how hard is we each going to hit? Because everybody's going to have a different landing, so to say.
100%. And kind of falls in line with this. You talk about it all the time, and that's building community. And sometimes I think, it's easy to hear build community, and for that to be kind of an overwhelming thought of, oh, that means I have to build this, long reach network. Like, just make some friends with local people, and with people who kind of have the same, they don't have to believe this is going to happen or that's going to happen, but they just are like, I'm just not sure about where the world's at. I don't know, something could happen. Start building that network. And just like he was taught, that will make things better too, right? Having that network.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, buddy.
Absolutely.
We
and like you said, your network could be, it doesn't have to be local. Yeah.
Start bartering with your neighbors. Do it now. Be like, hey, I see you got a substantial amount of eggs. I've got, whatever vegetables or fruits. Let's start doing a little trading. Start that process right now. Get that already. When is the time? When's the worst time to start this kind of stuff? When everything's already went to hell. If you already have these networks in place, and you've already started bartering and trading, and trading out even labor. Say, hey, I'm a skilled carpenter. You're you do goat husbandry, whatever it is. Start bartering those skills with fellow man and woman right now, because it's way easier to do in the world that we live in thus far than the world where it's going.
100%.
And that goes right back to something Matt was talking about earlier, about how he's still working on his edible medicinal plants. It was, recommending people go do that. That's a skill. All right. And like you just said, T, we can barter our skills. All the cool stuff and the gear, the kit, we can lose those things, but skills, as long as we maintain them, we won't lose them. And that's, you can trade your knowledge for stuff, like you're just saying. So get some training, guys, in whatever it is, like Matt said, go take a Red Cross CPR class, take a Stop the Bleed class, take a pistol class, a carbine class, a communications class, a TCCC or whatever, but take some training, if you've got an interest in like something like mechanics or woodworking, get into it. Start learning it now so that you'll have skills that you may be able to borrow. Because, it's not much. You don't have to stretch your imagination very far to wonder what people will have to do to get the things they need when money is no longer a medium of exchange and things like that. It's not going to be fun unless you have skills that you can trade.
Those trade skills are huge too. And there's, we always think about, my bug out bag and my kit and my pews and, my stockpile of insert here. But how many of you guys know how to patch a tire? How many of you guys know how to frame, how to roof, how to make repairs, no matter what it is, electrical, plumbing? All these type of skills are becoming a thing of the past in this day and age, and in super high demand. I come from the world of transportation mechanics, and I was a licensed general contractor for years. So those skills there, grid down, world went off the deep end. Now they became worth way more at that point.
Yeah.
Bottom
Absolutely.
line,
whatever your skill set is. I mean, data entry is not going to be a big one, but like electricians and things like that still will be. And I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead. I stepped on you.
I was just going to say, bottom line is make yourself more of an asset than a liability, right? Because we're all both. All of us are both of those things. We just want to be a little bit more on the asset side, and whether that's with knowledge or skills or capabilities. And I've a whole lot wanted to do it. I just was never a gearhead. My life didn't. I just like to go take a small engine repair class, not because I want to do somebody else. I just like to be able to work on my lawnmower, just for me. That's all. Yeah. But that's a heck of a skill.
But then that's exactly. Yeah. I mean, like I just had to rebuild the carb on one of my generators because one I use for my camper all the time. I didn't have to take that to the shop. No, that 72-inch bad boy ZT mower I had to take that to the shop. But my generator, like the little things like that, I can handle that. And the only reason I had to take that damn mower to the shop is I couldn't get it off the ground to pull the clutch. So I'm going to put this last comment up here from Will. It's an interesting one. Go ahead, Sue.
Well, the other thing I was going to say was learn to use hand tools too, because if you don't have power and you don't have fuel, then knowing how to drive a nail and to use a saw, and a lot of people used to laugh at me. I was one of the first few in my generation in the military that started carrying around a tomahawk. It wasn't that I was going to try to scalp somebody or take somebody's head off with it. That tomahawk was just as important as an e-tool. And when it came to making foxholes and overhead cover and all that kind of stuff, everybody wanted to borrow my tomahawk when it came to just regular 7-8 infantry skills, and nobody issued tomahawks or axes anymore. So that's learn to use hand tools.
I'll tell you, that's
my addition to it.
Yeah, I'll tell you a simple little skill set and a mild investment in materials would make you a highly valuable individual in a grid down situation. And that's somebody that can build small scale solar power stations. Think a small panel, a battery, like the Yetis, the Goal Zero Yetis and things like that, but on a small scale, so you can charge, say, cordless tools or something to that effect. Because when there is no power, a little power goes a long way. So. Yep. And this is the last comment we want to put up here. It says, it's from Will Gomez. He says, if Trump loses 24, there will be civil unrest. Beans, bullets, Band-Aids, comms, fuel. Pretty well sums it up. I mean, we don't know what will happen if he wins, but we have a pretty good idea just from what they're doing to him now to ensure it never happens. But Matt, you got anything you want to leave him with tonight, man?
The only thing I would say is just to hit one more time on aware of what's happening. But I don't think there's anything more important I could say in the current climate we're in. Take a break from your phone, spend time with the people that you love, that you care about, do something good. Because the truth, every single time I go to a restaurant and eat, I'm really, really thankful because I just have this thought that keeps creeping up in my mind. There's probably going to come a day where I can't just come and sit down and pay for someone to serve me and to bring me anything that I want to eat. So I'm going to enjoy the little things, right? So my goal for next year, I'm going to have a little resolution. 2 days, my phone is going to be turned off and I'll be unreachable. I'm not going to carry it with me because I need to unplug. And I would say, make sure if it's an hour, if it's a half a day, a whole day, make sure you take the time to unplug and enjoy that time. Live like Chris was talking about. There's lots to be worried about. Take the time to live.
I couldn't agree with that more. Like, you're spot on. Sue, what do you got, man?
Just to caveat what Matt said, and what I've said since this podcast started was take the time to sit down with that generation. We call the World War II vets the greatest generation, but there's a lot of people in their 80s and 90s right now. Take a notebook with you and ask them how they lived when they were kids, especially if they grew up in rural areas. And it's just amazing what you can learn with how they lived their childhoods. And if you just take those notes and realize that they were, a lot of them were raised without electricity, without, a phone all the time. If they listen to anything electronic, it was the family radio. And you'd be surprised that we're only 2 generations away from that. So stop panicking. If everything just goes to hell tomorrow, we'll go back to that, and we'll gather around the Christmas tree and around the dinner table and be more families. I kind of wish it would happen. I know that scares a lot of people, but I kind of wish we didn't have computers and cell phones just for the holidays, like Matt said, so we could spend more time with our families, especially that generation that we're about ready to lose. They're all getting too old. So
I just did that with some folks in Louisiana. Yeah, I was just doing that. T, what do you got, man?
I'm just going with what these guys said. Disconnect, pay attention to your own doorstep. That's the best way you can put it. Like, focus on your own doorstep before you worry about everybody else's doorstep. That's what we do in this world too much, is we worry about everybody else. And I'm not saying be self-centered. That's not where I'm going. But, get your own priorities in line before you start worrying about everything else that's happening in the world. It's important, but more so important, what's on your own doorstep.
I agree entirely. I've been saying it for years, live for today. And it's the same thing Matt's saying, basically, enjoy the little things. People talk about what are you going to miss if this happens. I'll tell you, the thing I miss the most will be a hot shower and air conditioning. Those are the 2 things I'm going to miss. So, we take it for granted, but that's what I'm going to miss. We're not going to have any lives next week, guys, because Thanksgiving, next week. And so everybody's going to take that time off. The pre-orders are out for book 12, Exploring Home. The signed copy pre-orders, guys, I'm just waiting on them. They're on their way. As soon as they get here, they'll get signed and be shipped out to y'all. So don't forget, you can join us over at the after show on the rocks. Matt, you gonna hang out with us for a little while over there? We can be a little free over there and talk about whatever. So, yeah. So you guys, you can jump on a Patreon and catch that one. And that's it for tonight, I guess. You guys be good at it. We'll catch you not next week, but the week after. We got some good guests going on.